It's Lindley Oz, May 2nd, 2014. We're going to explore a couple of different web articles about the Nephilim. And what we're going to look at is varying characteristics that help to support and prove the biblical account of the Nephilim found also in the book of Enoch. Now, this first website I'm on is Coast to Coast, and it's a brief note about an interview that George Nuri did with L.A. Marzulli. But I want to read you just a quick excerpt from that. Well, it's actually a couple paragraphs, because it's going to explain to you so that you'll understand the next items that I'm going to show you in relation to the Nephilim on some of Brien Foerester's articles, which he has so generously been very good about sending me links, and I so much appreciate it because he's got to be very busy. So let's start out here, with an explanation about how this red-haired phenomenon in Peru among the Paracas has to do with the Nephilim. It says, author and researcher L.A. Marzulli discussed his ongoing work on the Watchers and the cosmic battle instigated by the Nephilim, or fallen angels, whom he believes had tinkered with mankind's DNA. He shared his startling discovery in Peru of what might be Nephilim skulls. In Paracas, on the coast of Peru, he and Richard Shaw, the director of the Watcher series, visited a necropolis, a huge desert cemetery, and a museum that had some 40 skulls originally from the graveyard. While some of the elongated heads were shaped by cradle boarding, which is a type of skull binding that led to cranial deformation, others appear to be genuinely anomalous, or in other words, nothing had been done to their heads, they were born that way. And they only had one parietal plate, he detailed. Some of the skulls also have a large, pronounced ridge and a heart-shaped dome in the rear that can't be achieved through cradle boarding, he continued, because some people have argued that, well, they did this cradle boarding so long and through so many generations that eventually they adapted to that, and the babies were born that way. Well, no, because, and I've shown you in another post, and maybe I'll dig around and find it, because Brien Foerester has a great video where he actually shows you the skull. He's got it close up, on the camera. I think he's holding it in his hands, and he's showing you a skull of somebody who had an elongated skull from the cradle boarding, and then he shows you an elongated skull that has the different type of cranial plates, or parietal plates, sorry. So I'll dig around and see if I can get a hold of that video. Some of the skulls also have a large pronounced ridge and a heart-shaped dome in the rear that can't be achieved through cradle boarding, he continued. I believe we are looking at some sort of genetic manipulation. That are the remains of the Nephilim from around 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, he added. They brought back a red hair sample from one of the Peruvian skulls and arranged for comparative spectroscopic test with other samples. Curiously, the ancient Peruvian hair matched the patterns of a blonde hair of an alleged alien hybrid, Marzulli reported. He contends that the aliens associated with abductions are actually the Nephilim. In the days of Noah, there was an ancient grid system that covered the planet which worked with megalithic structures, he said, and he believes he saw remnants of this in Peruvian locations such as Cuzco. This ancient grid was used by the Nephilim to enslave humanity, and now, according to biblical prophecy, the modern grid system, satellites, etc., will be used to control the population, he warned. Now, I want to pause there briefly just to state that I recently did a few articles on the ancient megalithic structures such as the pyramids, having everything to do with end times mind control. And the way I believe that would be done is through vibration technology and the 110 megahertz theory. Because in the RFID chip, there happens to be that megahertz technology I just mentioned, along with the vibration technology. So if it's the RFID chip, which is used, which I believe it will be, or some form of that, once that's inserted into you, basically it will change your DNA, and it also has something in it that controls your mind. That could explain why when people take the chip, there's no turning back. It changes you. Let's see where I left off. Okay, it says this ancient grid was used by the Nephilim to enslave humankind. And I just read this, but I'm reiterating it. And now, according to biblical prophecy, the modern grid system, satellites, etc., will be used to control the population, he warned. A site known as American Stonehenge. Now, if you've never heard of American Stonehenge, I will look up a video on that and show it to you. It's in New Hampshire. It's thought to be around 4,000 years old. He said it shows evidence that human sacrifice took place there and may have been another location of the ancient Nephilim. Now, I've got to go look at that and see what he's talking about. It is hyperlinked. Maybe I'll just click on it. But I did a post a long time ago now on American Stonehenge. This is not to be confused with the Georgia Guidestones. Okay? I'm pretty sure. Now, they could be wording that differently, but there is an American Stonehenge that is not the same as the Georgia Guidestones, or the place where the Georgia Guidestones are found. But we'll check it out and make sure of what they mean in this article here by the American Stonehenge. Marzulli believes that the Antichrist figure will be a hybrid or Nephilim, and when he comes into power, you will not be able to buy, sell, or trade without the mark, which, once accepted, will alter people's DNA, turning them into Nephilim or the seed of the serpent. Now, the link takes you to Wikipedia, and I just checked it out. I hit pause and check this out to make sure that the information is correct, and it is. It says America's Stonehenge is an archaeological site consisting of a number of large rocks and stone structures scattered around roughly 30 acres within the town of Salem, New Hampshire, in the Northeast United States. America's Stonehenge is open to the public for a fee, part of a recreational area that includes snowshoe trails and an alpaca farm. Again, it's a tourist attraction with particular appeal to believers in the New Age systems. Well, go figure, because your people that are all about New Age systems and so forth, basically it's the same thing as being a Luciferian. The thing of it is, a lot of New Agers actually believe they're doing something good for the peace of humanity. They don't really know that they're partaking in witchcraft. In fact, if you tell them it's witchcraft, they would get very upset. But it's true. It's white magic. It's witchcraft. You can hide it under the term white magic. Doesn't matter. It's still dark, because you're calling upon demons and gaining power through demonic sources. Okay, now we are on Brien Foerester's website. You can see Brien right here. It says the mysterious red-haired mummies of the coast of Peru. He writes, the southern coastal area of Peru, specifically Paracas and Nazca, has evidence that most academics have not looked at, and that is the phenomenon of the existence of pre-Columbian people having red hair. And I just showed you about how the red hair goes with the whole concept of the Nephilim. And there's a picture. See the red hair right here? Counter to common claims, this reddish or even blondish appearance in several mummies and skulls, such as the example above of a Nazca person in the Chowchilla Cemetery, is not the result of age, sun bleaching henna, or other dye, but shows that some of these people had hair, which is genetically different than most Native Americans. And I just read to you as well about, the blonde hair, how the findings or the study that was done was consistent with the people that had the blonde hair. There is another picture. You can see the red hair. Red hair occurs naturally on approximately 1 to 2% of the human population. It occurs more frequently, 2 to 6%, in people of Northern or Western European ancestry and less frequently in other populations. Red hair appears in people with two copies of a recessive gene or chromosome 16, which causes a mutation in the MC1R protein. It is characterized by high levels of the reddish pigment phenylanin. Let's see, let me do that slow. Phenylanin, and relatively low levels of the dark pigment eumelanin. I'm sure I killed that first word here. It looks like pheomelanin. Okay. Now here is another picture. This is one of the skulls that is elongated. Remarkably, the royal bloodline of the Paracas culture, who preceded the Nazca had red hair in most cases. As the Nazca moved into the Paracas territory about 100 AD, they mated with the latter, and mounting evidence suggests that they eventually exterminated the royal Paracas. This evidence, for example, is indicated by the almost complete absence of elongated skulls / cranial deformation during the Nazca period and reduced presence of red hair. Now, this is a 2-year-old child's skull that had the red hair. You can see right here. See the clear evidence of red. The above skull is that of a 2-year-old baby, which one of the last generations of Paracas, dying about 1,950 years ago. Notice the strawberry blonde hair. The question is, where would the red / blonde hair have come from? A probable answer is that the Paracas migrated to the coast of Peru, possibly via Easter Island, but from an unknown land. See right here? See the red hats? It says the red hats of the Moi of Easter Island, Rapa Nui, in fact represent the hair tied into a top knot, and many of these large stone figures were made prior to the arrival of Polynesians, who first came there about 100 AD at the earliest. You can see looks like a computer graphic of one of these types of people with the elongated skull and the red hair. Above is how artist Marcia K. Moore perceives the Paracas may have looked. Even archaeologists do not know where the Paracas came from. DNA testing, now underway, may give the answers. Now, Brien Foerester, before we go on, is the author of several books: Nazca, Decoding the Riddle of the Lines, Crimson Horizon, The Mysterious Sea Kings of the Pacific, and Easter Island, Guide for Inquisitive Minds. So you can check out some of his books. He is also a tour guide in Peru. Now, on the same subject of the red hair, and there are detailed photos here, it says the mystery of ancient Egypt's red hair mummies. With regard to the ancient Egyptians, we have it on the authority of Manetho that they used to burn red-haired men and scatter their ashes with winnowing fans, and it is highly significant that this barbarous sacrifice was offered by the kings of the grave of Osiris. We may conjecture that the victims represented Osiris himself, who was annually slain, dismembered, and buried in their persons, that he might quicken the seed in the earth. That's from James Frazier's The Golden Bow. You can see the picture here. It says, if the blonde hair of the Egyptian mummies you see pictured above was a result of the mummification process, then why are the statues of the royal Egyptian pharaohs and nobility pictured below depicted with blue eyes? Okay, so you can see right here the pictures. See the blonde hair. Apparently, people try to say, well, that's a result of the mummification. Okay. Clearly a controversial subject, but one worthy of study. Do we really know, genetically speaking, where the so-called dynastic Egyptians came from? Some presume they were exclusively of black African origin, while others speculate that they came from lands to the east, were of a complex racial mix, or in fact had as their source Egypt itself. Now, here is a sculpture of Ramses II. It says, can we tell, based on the facial features of sculptures such as this, presumably of Ramses II, an idea of his ethnic ancestry? What is perhaps far more curious is the presence of mummies from ancient Egypt that had red and in some cases even blonde hair. One of the most famous is the ancestor called Ginger, which is housed in the British Museum in the photo below. Okay, there's Ginger. And Ginger is a man, by the way. It explains why they nicknamed him Ginger. Ginger died more than 5,000 years ago, yet his golden hair, which gave him his nickname, and even his toe and fingernails were perfectly preserved. He was found in a cemetery at Gebala in Egypt and dated to the late pre-dynastic period around 3,400 BC or earlier. The question unanswered is, did Ginger have natural light-colored hair, or was it dyed? And if the latter is the case, why? Hair color is a fascinating study in itself, and the wide range of shades portrayed in Egyptian art does, to a large extent, reflect the diverse range found in reality. The most common hair color then, as now, was a very dark brown, almost black color, although natural auburn and even, rather surprisingly, blonde hair was also to be found. With their great fondness for elaboration, the Egyptians' skillful use of dyes has produced yet further shades for us to study, analysis showing many to be various forms of henna, which even an aged Ramses II had used regularly to rejuvenate his white hair. So you can see some photographs there. In 1975, the Egyptian government asked French scientists to attempt preservation of the mummy of Ramses. After the work was complete, the mummy was returned in a hermetically sealed casket, and it has remained hidden from the public view ever since, concealed in the bowels of the Cairo Museum. The results of the study were published in a lavishly illustrated work edited by L. Belout, C. Roubaix, and C. Desraches. And I'll let you click on his link that I'll provide and check that out if you want. Professor P. F. Sicaldi, with a research team, studied some hairs from the mummy's scalp. Ramses II was 87 years old when he died, and his hair had turned white. Sicaldi or Sicaldi, not sure which, determined that the reddish-yellow color of the hair was due to a dye with a dilute henna solution. Microscopic examinations showed that the hair roots contained natural red pigments, and that therefore during his younger days, Ramses II had been a redhead. Analysis concluded that these red pigments did not result from the hair somehow fading or otherwise being altered after death, but did represent Ramses' natural hair color. After having achieved this immense work, an important scientific conclusion remains to be drawn. The anthropological study and microscopic analysis of hair carried out by 4 laboratories, and it gives you the name of the laboratories. And here's an interesting thing. This is an illustration. It says, another illustration may be seen from the elaborate tomb of Merisank III, the granddaughter of King Khufu of the 4th dynasty. This beautifully sculptured and painted tomb was built by her mother, Hetepheres II. Hetepheres was first married to Prince Kiwab, the son of Khufu and rightful heir to the throne. Hetepheres placed herself on a wall painting showing her hair or headdress as red. The poor quality of the reproduced photographs make the colors doubtful, but eyewitness reports tell us it was red. You can see right there. Now, here's some more information that's rather interesting concerning the Nephilim in Peru. Right here it says, could there be a second Lloyd Pye Starchild skull in Peru? Many readers will know of Lloyd Pye, who was an investigator interested in anomalies as regards human origins. His convincing theories have poked holes in the conventional Darwinian evolutionary paradigm. One of the specimens, which became a major but not exclusive focus in his life for about 12 years until his death in late 2013, was what became known as the Starchild skull. Now, the name he even admitted was somewhat presumptuous, as it automatically implied that it was an extraterrestrial. Now, as many of you know, or those of you who follow my work regularly, I don't believe in extraterrestrials the way the world does. I believe that these are Nephilim, okay, entities straight from the pits of hell. Okay, it says, however, this strange-looking skull found in a cave in Mexico in the 1930s does have a number of attributes physically, chemically, and genetically which cast doubt on it being Homo sapien, and its shape is not the result of any known disease, especially not hydrocephaly, commonly known as water on the brain. Now here's a picture of the skull that was found in Peru. Lloyd Pye was not aware of this. This just recently came out. It was never photographed before. It's owned by a person who wishes to remain anonymous. Now let's compare. This is the one found in Peru. Okay. You see the slanted eye sockets and just the shape of the skull in general, where the nose would be. Now look back up here at the one that I showed you right off the bat. This was the one found in Mexico. See the slanted eye sockets, the facial structure of the bone. Same thing. Now here's another view of the same skull from Peru. It says, as you can see in the above photo, the overall shape of the skull is odd, especially the shape and shallowness of the eye sockets. And you can see what he's talking about there as far as the shape and the shallowness. Here's another view. This is kind of a front side angle, and this is a total side angle. And then if you could reconstruct it, this is what an artist feels that it would look like. Looks very similar to what the world knows as aliens, okay, but which we as Christians know we're not aliens, but they are Nephilim hybrids. They are from the fallen angels. It says, here is an initial impression of what the Peru skull may have looked like when alive by artist Marcia K. Moore. Now, Steve Quayle mentioned to me in an email he sent that you had the fallen angels. Then their offspring was the Nephilim. Then the offspring of the Nephilim was the Raphaim. Okay, just wanted to mention that to you as a side note. Now, this is another article on Brien Foerester's website, why we can assume Machu Picchu is older than the Inca. Now, here's some ancient archaeological structures that would suggest technology that was greater than the Incas, in which we could, safely assume was the presence of the Nephilim, or a result of the presence of the Nephilim. It says, above is a classic photo of the lost city of the Machu Picchu in Peru, built by the Inca supposedly in the 15th century AD, at the request of the ruler, Pachacutec. It was abandoned by the Inca soon after the arrival of the Spanish in 1533 and lay forgotten until the early 20th century. The amazing scale of this astonishing undertaking is seen here above with a photo taken from Hyena Picchu Mountain and behind Machu Picchu. The Inca clearly built most of this amazing city, but did they construct all of it? So you can see in the picture right here. What you see in the above photo is classic Inca building technology, stone on stone with clay mortar in between. About 95% of Machu Picchu was constructed this way. The Inca were a Bronze Age culture and did not have the capacity to finely work the white granite of which the city is made. You see a picture here. As you can see above, the wall on the left is very inferior to that on the right. Yet they are supposed to have been made at the same time, more or less. And here, through a mortar-free window, the lower wall in the foreground building is composed of larger and tighter-fitting stones than above. Okay, see right here. This is a mortar-free window, so nothing in between the stones. At the Temple of the Three Widows, at the core of Machu Picchu, we can see that each custom-fit stone is of a different shape and size. See right here. Looks like puzzle pieces. The reasoning behind it is far from just being earthquake proofing. In this curious megalithic work, to the left of the Temple of the Three Windows, and just below the famous hitching post of the sun, never appears to have had a fourth side. Notice the earthquake damage on the right. Such a massive tremor would have destroyed all of the buildings composed of stone and clay mortar. Thus, it may be far older. Here's another picture. It says the wall on the right shows a profound level of refined finish, mortar-free, which could not be achieved with Bronze Age tools. The conclusion is that the core of the Machu Picchu is far older than the rest of the city and was built using lost ancient high technology. And then there's two books where Brien addresses the issues of lost high technology in Peru. One specifically is a virtual guide to the Machu Picchu, Lost Ancient Technology of Peru and Bolivia by Brien Foerester. And this one also by Brien Foerester, of course, titled Machu Picchu, Virtual Guide and Secrets Revealed. And he says both of these books, an ebook and paperback, are available here. And you can click there on his link. The links to these sites will be included in my post on Before It's News, but you can click right here to buy his books. And it says 2 tours you can join, which will explore Machu Picchu, Cusco, the Sacred Valley, and more this fall of 2014. Both of them September 15th to October the 2nd and October 22nd to November the 6th. And you can click his hyperlinks to find out more information on joining him in these tours. So to me, there seems to be more than enough information that you can find, and Brien Foerester actually goes on site in his videos and shows you these things. So you don't just have to rely on a picture. He actually shows you in his videos. There's more than enough information to prove to you that there was genuinely a presence of the Nephilim, which are mentioned in the Bible and also mentioned in the book of Enoch.